Well, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited you're here. Just to kick things off, introduce yourself and give the audience a little bit of background into you and how you kind of came to be an artist, how you came to this art career.
Oh, okay. I'm Amanda Tucker. I am in Richmond, Virginia. My studio is out in the country in Goochland. Um, I went to VCU for art and got my BFA in painting and printmaking. And I minored in marketing. And like a lot of people, graduated and realized I had to be a big girl and have health insurance. And if I wanted to not live at home, I had to figure that out. So I went into retail for a long time. Um, Literally like walked around the mall, like I need a job. And Dillard's was hiring full time. So I was doing that for a while, and getting sucked into the climbing the ladder of the retail biz. But always kind of creating. Still, I think art school I'm so grateful for. Like I reference it all the time. Like I hear some of my professors in my ear, but it was also like kind of got burnt out, I think. And because when I graduated, I kind of like sold all my supplies. I was like, I'm taking a break from this. And I found myself creating when I was like gifting to people. But Instagram is really how I never thought I could go be an artist professionally. Like I thought, oh, I had to have okay, I might regret the things I'm saying. Whatever, this is me. I'm just gonna say it
I
all.
love it.
I, I thought you had to be like this serious angsty artist who like was only shown in galleries, and I had to create a body of like work of 20 things with this like profound, deep meaning, and like because that's like art school,
Yeah.
and like, well, that's not my vibe. And I also thought, oh, I can just like walk into any gallery and like dress up and sell some art. And they were like, oh, did you intern? I'm like, no. So they were like, yeah, we're not interested. You have no experience. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So was in retail for far too long. But when Instagram came about, my husband and I had moved from South Carolina um, back to Richmond and didn't have a lot of money to spend, and I wanted to decorate my house. And so I'm like, well, I'll make stuff. And I just like made a post with like my living room with the painting. And my actual district manager at the time was like, I need that. I want to buy that. And I was like, what? Like it just like didn't cross my mind of like I
Yeah.
got this. So that night I made an Etsy shop. I was like, okay, let me Google what do I need to do like to take her money. And I created my Etsy shop and I sold my piece. And I like was like, oh, I was so excited. And I started to get the itch. But I, even in that point, I didn't think it could be a full-time thing. I thought, oh, cool, like extra money I'm making. But then I just started to fall in love with showing up and sharing my work and getting feedback and how it speaks to people. And I was just like, wow, this is amazing.
Mhm.
So I would, paint all night and clock into work with the goal of quitting to do my art full time, but I had to show my husband that, hey, don't worry, I could do it. So I was trying to make my salary that I was already making to show him. So there was this whole thing of me trying to, say, hey, I'm going to quit and do my art full time. I was pregnant. And he was like, wait, what? And he's like, but he's seeing two incomes coming in. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm exhausted. I can't, that's not happening. We're not continuing that. Like I'm burnt out. So
Right.
I told him, give me 3 months. And if I can't do it, I'll go back and do what I need to do. And yeah, I mean, that was hard. I mean, I was like, you've got to let me try this. So
Yeah.
yeah, so Instagram really put the bug in my ear of like, oh, this could be a career. So
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And I love that trajectory because it's so interesting that you went to art school, but then I mean, I think a lot of people have that same story of, okay, great, I went to art school, but kind of now what? Just because and I think things are changing, but it's still hard. It's hard to break into the industry. You don't get the resources in school. And so then you're kind of like, now what? I mean, I studied art in school and I also graduated and was like, what am I going to do? And it worked out, but like only because I had to make a job for myself.
Yes, yeah. And it just felt like, oh man, like I had burnout from critiques. And, of course, your
Hmm.
year is like so intense with critiquing and feeling beat up on. And, you know, art school attracts some very interesting professors. And like, I'm so grateful for some, but some I think were like psychotic.
Yeah.
And so I mean, there's good psycho and there's bad psycho. And yeah, I mean, I had one professor who had me paint my face 20 times, like in huge canvas. That was like my project. And I was like,
Oh my gosh.
he's like, if you can paint your face, you can paint anyone. I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do with all these paintings? So I used to like gift them like
Yeah.
during the semester was over. And so the only person who wanted them was my grandmother. So like you would go into her living room and be like my face.
The gallery wall of your face.
Oil painting on my face. And she's like, I love it. So yeah, I was definitely burnt out. And also then like there was Facebook, but I think social media, they knew it was going to kind of, I think my marketing classes knew, we would talk about it, but the art teachers and everything, no, it was just so traditional ways. And yeah, so
Yeah. Well, something else I want to talk about that you touched on is like you were starting to get the itch, but then you, I think, went about it really strategically. If you didn't just be like, all right, I'm going to jump in. You're like, I want 3 months. I'm going to try to match my salary. And you had to get your husband on board because you had a lot going on. And I think a lot of people don't touch on that. They're just like, I went full time and it was great. But I think, can you touch on one, what it looked like to get a spouse on board with, this
okay,
dream, but then
yeah.
also like, how did you know you were ready?
Yeah, so you could tell I was holding back a little bit of that story. I mean, it got kind of ugly, like I was pregnant with our second baby. So, um, in yeah, that was scary for us. And I was the health insurance and everything with my work. There was a moment in the kitchen, I remember saying to him, he's gonna probably listen to this and be like, oh my God. But I looked at him and I said, if you don't let me try this, like I will never, I'll never forgive you for like I said I will never like get over it, or I'll always like hold on to this
Mhm.
for as long as I said you live, not me. And like he's like, okay, like, and he believed in me, like he was the one like making my frames and stuff while I was like trying to grow. At that time
Mhm.
goal was growing a following. So I thought, okay, I need to grow my Instagram following, and show that like our lifestyle wouldn't change doing this. So I mean, I just really, oh, what drove me was just probably also because I look back on it and I think I used to think I was a bad manager, like, oh, I was a bad store manager because I was a store manager of an H&M.
Yeah.
I look back and I'm like, actually, like, because I'm working on that too, because as I grow in my profession now, I know I'm going to need help. And I have this like block of thinking like, I'm not going to managing people. So working on that. But I think because I was addicted. I mean, it was a release for me. And then having a little one at home and getting lost in your painting. So I would literally be at the register at work with my phone in my bra. And every time my Etsy sale would hit, it'd be like cha-ching, and I'd be like, I'm almost out of here. I'm almost out
Yeah.
of so I really, yeah, I had to, it was scary. It was scary. And my husband, he was supportive, but it was an ugly back and forth in the beginning. And I think that's good though, like looking back, I think that's why I was so strategic. I think if I had
Mhm.
a partner who, because, I'm love imagination and like, oh, and like everything will be good. It was good to have that person to be like, let's be realistic. Like, what do we need to
Yeah.
do? And so that helped me, I think. But yeah, I just once I started to make what I was making at H&M, I was like, okay, like let's try this. So when I did quit, I was on maternity leave.
Mhm.
Um, well, I guess I didn't know technically I was quitting yet. But I was like, okay, I had a certain amount of pay and then it was over. And I remember like nursing my son and being like in the dark in his nursery and being like, okay, I sold this much this week. Like I have to make this much next week. And like, how am I going to do that? And like kind of being panicky a little bit. But
Well, also what a tumultuous time to do that. I mean, having a brand new baby, like that's
yeah,
wonderful and beautiful, but it's not like you just are just sitting around eating bonbons. Like you're
yeah,
really
yeah,
busy in your
yeah.
personal life.
There were some scary moments, like rocking him and just being like, okay, like I got to do this. But at the same time, like doing it for them too, because I knew like retail hours are crazy. Like, it's hard, and weekends and missing out on things. And the idea of like having flexibility in my schedule and being able to create even with them with me. So I think that helped of like envisioning that. But yeah, whew, it was hard. It's a scary thing, but I think there's something about throwing yourself into it. Like you have to. It's like sink or swim.
You do, and it's like there's never gonna be a moment where it's not scary, but
Yeah.
I think you were almost lucky because, I mean, a lot of the times I think a lot of us have, whether it be spouses or family members or something, they come from not the creative background, and so it's good almost like you need to pull them on board and help them to visualize the dream, but it's also good in some ways to have a little bit of that pushback so that you can be like, "Okay, realistically, I need to make this much. I need to make this work. What do I want our day to day or our lifestyle or whatever to look like?" And it sounds like you had a little bit of that. And I mean, I'm sure it was stressful, but it's also good that you were thinking like, okay, I've made this much. How much do I need to make? Because it really set the groundwork for you to understand what you needed to be doing to actually make this work in the long run.
Right, right. And I think, it sounds so intense. And I guess it is. Like I never really thought about it. Like, yeah, that was brutal, like you said, like with a newborn. Um, but just to emphasize, like I always put a lot of importance into like always having fun. Like, am I
Mhm.
enjoying? Am I having fun? So for sure that outweighed it. Like I'm loving creating and connecting with people through that. So that, yes, it was so hard, like rocking him and being like, oh God, I have to do this. But there was also something so exciting about that too. Like I think I'm pretty good with goals
Yeah.
and having that pressure. Like I kind of like a little pressure.
Yeah. Well, can you talk us through how you set goals and kind of put that pressure on yourself now? I mean, pressure, I don't know if that's the right word, but kind of put that on yourself now because obviously you've grown, you're successful, but how do you still work to progress and move forward?
To be honest, I don't really have to like set goals right now. I think because I said I don't need I feel like summer was hard
Hmm.
to be. I have two little ones, and I pulled my son out of daycare because he was starting kindergarten. I'm like, I want to be with you. And like,
Hmm.
daycare's so expensive. So I thought, okay, like he can come to the studio with me, like his sister always does, in the summer. There's two different personalities. My son is bored after a while, or he's like attacking canvases. And
Right.
then my daughter can be like in her own little world and like creating things all day long and like barely talk to me unless she wants a snack or share what she's making. And so I'd get a lot done. But summer, I really struggled this summer with balancing and finding time to really create, because it's hard to create and get in a flow when you have little ones interrupting or asking something, or, parenting. Um, you can still do it. I still do, but there's such a difference in having that like in the zone, and getting
Right.
lost painting. So it was really a struggle. So I have to be frank, like, I am proud of the success I have. And I think, I've built a good career for myself, but I was basically just trying to keep my head above water the last 2 months. I feel like it felt hard. So I was really just in a gotta get it done, marketing, thinking outside the box, let people, I realize on social or sharing, like it is typically slow for some artists, some galleries. One of the galleries that you interviewed, actually, she had made a post about in July doing a sale because it's typically their quietest, slowest month.
Yeah.
And I had done one. I did one on my prints. I wanted to get higher quality prints. I knew that was a goal of mine. I thought, well, let's do it now. Let's clean out this inventory I've had since 2019. And that really helped. And that worked. That created excitement. Like this is going to be gone. So I really had to, I mean, it's not probably what everyone wants to hear, but maybe it's relatable. Like the
Hmm.
last 2 months were just, where can I find time to paint? Keep my kids in activities and like keep my head above water. So I think the goals during that time is also thinking outside the box, and giving myself some grace, and not being too hard on myself, and realizing,
Yeah.
okay, like you're in the thick of it right now. You'll be back in routine. Um, so I guess to share, like when I think of a goal for myself right now, like one of my goals is coming to the studio and creating what I what is like authentically coming to me to create and what mindset I'm in, as opposed to creating what I think is going to sell. Because when I
Yeah.
was in those 2 hard months of having my kids home and the chaos, and like, I learned a lesson. We're doing camps next summer, but you learn. I'm like, yeah,
Hmm.
boy needs to be in camps. He's not going to be entertained in the studio. Um, and just those 2 months of being like, okay, like, I realized I was starting to create what I thought was going to sell. And I hate that. I mean, I know you kind of have to do a little bit, but no, I hate that. And had to check in with myself and be like, hey, what are you doing? Like, why are you an artist? Like, what is the point if you're, like, you're not Amazon? What do you think you're doing? Trying to pump out
Right. Well,
trendiest
and
thing.
I think
Mail.
yeah, you've built such a strong brand, and from an outside perspective, which I want to talk about, but you've built such a strong brand that I think it really gives you the flexibility to paint what you want, and it's still aligned with your customers, because I think people love you, they love the energy, like they like you are a part of the brand. So if you're like, I want to paint this one day, people can buy into that. So I think that's something you've cultivated really well. So can you talk about, I know you really started on Instagram, but how have you thought about marketing and branding yourself as well as the artwork?
Yeah. I love that you said that, because so easy to get in your head when we compare. I think there's some wonderful artists that I love, collect their work, that you go on their page and like it's so like, a theme of one thing really. And then like I looked at mine recently because I was like, sometimes I like to do that. I think everyone should do that. Like, try to like pretend you don't know you and like go onto your pages, go on your website, like what would I think, and I was like, woo, girl, I'm like cheetah, I'm like queens, I'm like abstracts. There's dancing to like because I want to remind everyone, have fun with what you do in life. But I think for me, it's knowing that I am my ideal client. So that's what I try to remind myself. Who is my client? It's me. Like most of the time, when all the time, a collector, someone who's been buying from me all the time, or someone who's always liking my stuff or commenting when I meet them, it's like, I could be your friend. Like, we click. And I'm like,
Mhm.
and it took a while to be like, well, duh, because if they're into me and into my art, like, that's such a huge part of me and my soul. It's like, of course we click. That makes total sense. So
Right.
I think also in 2000, and I have to give credit, in 2020 or 2021, I did get a business coach. Invested in myself with Kinsey Madsen.
Mhm.
Cosmic CEO is her podcast. Really loved her podcast, love her energy. And I did her $1 million brand academy
Cool.
program, and it changed everything for me. Like, I was already, my career was already like building up, but she really put an emphasis on mindset and who is your brand. Your brand is you. Like, what does that look like? And so I think that really helped me to be like, okay, like, it's me, and like, what am I going through right now is what I'm going to share. What I need right now is what I'm going to share. So I think sticking with that
Yeah.
has,
And I
yeah.
think that's so true. One, I love that you found a business coach, especially one that you jived with her. Like, I think that's why I always tell people, I'm like, work with someone who you like, because they're going to help you. Because y'all are thinking the same, like speaking the same language. But I also love that you started to think of your brand as you, because that's true. Like you said earlier, like these people, like you want to love your customers. You want to be able to like, that's the way I feel. Like when someone DMs me, I'm usually it's like then we end up having a great conversation, and I'm like, come visit me next time you're in Charleston. Like I do that with clients, I do that with artists, I do that. And that's
Yeah.
what you want. And obviously not everyone is that way. Like not every single person that comments is that way, but it's you want to cultivate a client base of people that are, followers that love you because you're creating the work. The work is you. And I think that's something I mean, I think I don't know how far back this goes. Like, I feel like you were probably doing it before to an extent, but it sounds like it really clicked for you when you talked to her.
Yes, it did. And mindset work was so amazing. Like, one of the biggest things, like, if, just to share that,
Hmm.
we talk about goals and stuff, was like, okay, what was your biggest month you ever had? And she's like, write it down. And then it was like, it was like holiday time. She's like,
Hmm.
why not do that next month? Like, if you've done it before, you can do it again. And I was
Right.
like, oh, like, so my goal was my largest month. She's like, that's your goal each month. I was like, wait, but that was like Christmas, leading up to Christmas. And it's like, okay, so what kind of energy was I putting out during that time? Like, what was
Hmm.
I doing? And like having that goal in mind really did help me. But I think with like branding, I love it so much. I mean, I told you I did marketing was my minor. Like I do love marketing. I think it's fun. But I also think it's so important. Like some people are gonna be like, no, like what is she talking about? But to not take ourselves so seriously and like to remember that like we're in charge. Like if you're an artist just working for yourself, like you get to decide. You get to decide every day what your day looks like. You get to decide. I could say, you know what, I'm gonna do all black and white paintings for like the next month. It doesn't matter. You decide and just like put it out there and like share why and just assume that everybody else cares about what you're saying because I think that's a good part too is when you're
Right.
posting and you're showing up, just assume you are talking to your number one client, your ideal client, talking to yourself, right? And so
Hmm.
I think that a little delusion helps me to yeah, I think that's how I was able to create, the brand I created and
Yeah. And I think that's so key because I think people get so caught up in, I need to like put this brand forward and I need to be so professional. Or I need to fit in this box and I need to speak to my ideal customer. And it's like, y- yeah, you do need to speak to them. But if you are showing up as you are speaking to them. And like you said, if you want to go and paint all black and white paintings, which is not you from from visually
yeah,
what I can
yeah.
tell. But I think if you say that really well and you're like, hey guys, like you've been following this journey for a long time and I just am done with color. I'm going to take a break and I'm hopefully will come back excited again. Like if you say
And the client
why.
would be intrigued. Like if
Exactly. I'm like on the edge of my seat, like, why is she done with color? Like, you know?
wait,
And so
what?
it
Yeah.
works. But it's really just and I'm the same way. Like I used to be so like, oh, this is so like, is this weird? Like, do people care? Like, do people want to hear from me like talking? But then it's like once you start doing it, you're like, this is just my personality and it's gonna attract people that like me and probably are gonna want to buy my stuff because they resonate with me. I don't need the people that don't resonate with me. Like they're not gonna buy from me anyway.
Absolutely. And I think like when I do have like when we were talking about like the ideal client and then when you have like a difficult one or one that's like not very nice or something, most of the time they came because I was in scarcity mode. I was in
Hmm.
fear mode and I was creating from fear mode and I was trying to sell what I thought they wanted and that is
Hmm.
not my client, right? That's not really me. And so then I will come across that. It's like the universe is like, yeah, girl, no, stop doing that. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, you're not my vibe. But like I attracted you because I was not, I was feeling, I was in my head that week and I'm thinking, okay, like everyone went nuts for my flowers. I'm gonna make flowers, not against flowers, but
Right.
creating not because I'm inspired by the bouquet my husband gave me, because I'm like, flowers are it, it's a different energy. So
Absolutely. I mean, I can relate even just with like commissions. Like when I've been in a scarcity mode, I'm like, I'm just going to take whatever. And then all of a
yeah.
sudden I'm working on a piece and I'm like, this just isn't working because I don't want to do it. And so it's like,
Yeah, the
yeah. And
result.
you're like, then the client's kind of like, it's not really right. I'm like, no, it's not right. It's not right at
Yes.
all. But like,
I've had
I'm
clients be
fighting
like,
it.
"This is not," they're like, "It doesn't really look like you." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. It's
Because it
not
doesn't
me."
feel like me.
They're like, "I like your style." I'm like, "Yeah, what was I doing?" Like, I don't know. But I also found, I don't know if you've had this happen, like when you are in scarcity mode and you do take on the customs that you're like, "Oh God," and just to put it out there, we're all grateful for anyone wants our art, right? We're grateful for it, but maybe we would have passed on it, right? Or maybe we would have asked for more because it is
Hmm.
hard or something. I have found that like while I'm working on it and frustrated, I will sell a big piece or something of significance and go, crap, what am I doing? Like
Yeah. Well, it's that
all of a
wake up
sudden I'm
call.
feeling better and I'm like, wait, why did I why did I do that? But commissions are obviously, I know you've talked about on your page too, are a great way to have some type of stability or knowing like, okay, I do have a foundation of like money that is coming in next month or the couple of months ahead. So I do think they're a great tool. But like we were saying, like, are we booking them when we're excited about it? We want to do it, or are we like, oh shiz, you know? So I think there's a different energy for sure.
Definitely. And I think it's also important to hear because I think this is refreshing because I think we all go through phases of scarcity. Things are great. I'm saying yes to everything. I'm saying no to a lot of things. Like, I think it's just important to hear because, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to put words in everyone's mouth, but like, I think we all go through those periods. It's not like you make it and then you never have a fear again. It's like there's just fluctuations when you run your own business. And so it's important to like get in the mindset that there's going to be really great periods again when you're in a low period, or if you're in a high period, be like, okay, can I mentally keep myself in this mindset because I know there'll probably be a dip at some point, and not in a negative way. It's just understanding like that's the roller coaster of being an entrepreneur,
No,
so you have
absolutely.
to think about it.
No, absolutely. And I've been humbled because there was, you know, a good 2 years that I think a lot of people I've noticed have talked about it too. You know, I could just post something and it would sell. Because your audience at that time on Instagram, pretty much you knew when you posted, they saw it. Um,
Hmm.
and now, you know, it's everything's always changing, right? It's like maybe 50 of my followers will see it. And so I started to be a little cocky and like not, I used to sell in stores or, you know, partner with different galleries or be in a gallery. And I'd be like, why am I sharing this commission? Like I can just post and take the money. Like I definitely was
Yeah.
humble because yeah, I realized you cannot put your eggs in one basket. You can't be like, well, this is it. This is how I'm going to do it. And I'm good. And I also thought I was Beyonce because I was like making more than I've ever made. And I was like, oh, like just boo. And not thinking like realizing when you are running your own business, like you said, we rely on ourselves, right? Who's to say that like I won't, I'm not trying to put that out in the universe, but like something to happen that I can't create as much or whatever, you know, and that, like
Hmm.
you said, the fluctuation. And I was talking to I was at the diner in Goochland and a gentleman who's been in business for like 40 years was like, older gentleman giving me advice. And he's like, put it away, put it away. Like when you have those crazy good months that I know I'll have, because like we were saying, to be like committing to a certain salary for yourself and like squirreling that away. And I think that's so important for a creative because
Hmm.
we this needs to be good. Our head needs to be good. Our head needs to be clear to be creative, to go into the studio or wherever space you create in, and to really dive into your craft. But you can't do that if you're like, well, fudge, like my Geico bill is due, or like, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
you have to take care of that. And also not even money wise, but like my poor husband. But like if we just like in any marriage, you have a disagreement and I'm like, hey, I gotta like paint all day today. Like, we're good, right? And he's like, of course we're good. And I'm like, I just like need to feel good. And he's like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, I need it to go into the studio today. Yes, you can I'll make some angsty work, not gonna lie. But there is such a different energy. It's like, no, I'm gonna be thinking about it all day. I just need to know, like, we're cool now. Like, sorry, I was grumpy last night and I was mean. Like, I love you.
Yeah.
But because you have to take care of all of that for sure as a
You
creative.
do. You really do. And I think that's true really for like any artist, any entrepreneur. It's like you gotta take care of all of it. And I love what you said about kind of like, I mean, the money example is just easy because it's tangible, like squirreling that away because it helps to keep your head clear. Because if things do dip, you're like, okay, well, I have this like I can still give myself a salary, basically. Like I
Mhm,
have this stockpile. And I think the
mhm.
same goes, and I kind of want to talk about like marketing, but like when you have these crazy clients that want to buy absolutely everything you do on Instagram, it's like, can you get them on your email list? Can you get them to your website? Can you get them so that you have them later when
You
Instagram
remember
now is, doing whatever it's doing. So I
everybody
think,
is so upset about Instagram right now.
uh-huh.
And I think I just wanted to share this. I was like getting in my head about it. I think we need to be aware of like I think your page is great. If you I want to this is an announcement for every creative. If you're getting nervous and you're seeing things that make your heart go, I don't like that. I don't like that, you know, getting nervous about the economy, about social media and like feeling like everything's hard, like going to your page is great because you will touch on things of like, hey, this is really as a collective we're all feeling this, but this is what we're doing, what are you doing? And like
Mhm.
because I think if we just deep dive and we're like listening to all these people who and maybe this is just my own perception, but threads right now with artists are all like, wah, and so upset, right? And I was like reading them, and I'm like, oh, okay, because like I had a slow July. And I'm like, okay, I'm not alone in this, right? But like that's not what I want to see either, though. Like if you think about it, like that doesn't make me feel good. Like I love if I see an artist having a release, like I love to click to see when they sell out. Like when are they selling out? How much?
Yeah.
I'll be like how much they made. I'm like, good, people are buying, right? Because if you're listening to people being like talking about the economy and politics and being like, you're gonna get nervous, right? And so I love seeing like, no, there's buyers out there still. People are still buying, and everyone's mad at on threads. All the artists are mad at Instagram right now, and I almost was too. And then I was like, everything's always changing. Nothing stays the same. Facebook
Right.
didn't stay the same. We used to like, I'm aging myself, but MySpace used to be cool.
Hmm.
Like we cannot, I cannot be, why am I like, we're all angry at Instagram and it's so easy to do, but it's also like, why though? Like you, eh, it's like, let's look a little deeper, you know? It's not Instagram because recently I posted something like, you know, I do post things and it doesn't show up. And then I posted something that I thought was cool and so many views, so many likes. And I text my friend who I've complained to Instagram about, and I was like, oh, it's not Instagram. Like, I just need to make cooler shit. Oh, sorry. Am I allowed to curse? Sorry.
Yeah, you're fine.
I just need to make cooler. I was like, I need to make cooler stuff. Or like, it was a funny moment. Like, wow. Like, I was wanting to point a finger, and it's like, no, that's like always changing. Everything's changing. Like, so what can I control, you know?
Right. And
So
that's so important. Like I feel like even just example right now, like I feel like my and I don't have like a bajillion followers, but like the art coaching stuff, like my reels were getting a lot of views like for me and they were like steadily
yeah,
getting higher and then randomly they just dropped off. And I was kind of like, is my stuff not good? Like what am I doing? This is on me. And then I was kind of like I looked at the analytics and like I posted something the other day and it had I think like 800 views, which like for a reel is not very many, but it had 30 saves. And I'm like, okay, that's great. Like the people that are seeing it care.
yeah.
And I'm like, if 30 people are saving this, that means what I'm doing is valid. And I need to stop
Mhm.
caring about like what everyone says I need to care about and just like keep doing my thing and it's going to be okay. And that's kind of like my whole vibe is I'm like, I like to tell everyone, I like to tell artist stories. That's what this podcast is about. So that we can one, have things normalized, but it's also, we're not throwing ourselves a pity party. It's like, this is happening. It's not fun, but what are we going to do about it? Like, I'm not just going to sit here and be like, wow, Instagram sucks. I'm going to be like, okay, maybe I'll try out another platform or I'll send more emails or I'll spend less time on Instagram so I'm not so pissed off all the time.
Yes, yes. And with Instagram, I think like the way I like to treat it is like I was saying earlier, like I always am like, am I having fun? So
Yeah.
if I'm on there and I'm not having fun, then yeah, like take a break from it, you know, and do something else. But I think if we're so lucky that this is our career, and it's like, what was the point of that? Like, what was the point of me nursing my baby and like freaking out about like making a certain amount to show my husband I could quit, you know, if like I'm not even having fun, right? Like that would be heartbreaking. So I think showing up should be fun. Whatever that looks like, whatever platform. But I also think with that, it was a great reminder for me when like seeing everyone being frustrated with Instagram and being like, yes, I cannot have all my eggs in one basket, right? Like you were saying, building my email list. So I had a pretty good number of people in my email. I was like, I haven't really pushed that lately, you know?
Mhm.
So like putting it in my stories and being like, you know, I have a secret code, or maybe it's you get something, I don't know, whatever kind of tease to build that. And then going back to basics, like I was like, well, what did work before? Well, you know, if I'm posting and you're not necessarily seeing it, well, going back to shops, you know, that I used to
Mhm.
consign with and say they get a certain percentage. Um, because I think I really was, well, like I said, I was humbled like 2 years ago with that. It's like, no, like, okay, that's traffic coming in. That's somebody, maybe they don't buy it then, but they look my stuff up. I think just doing that, branching out, thinking outside the box. You know, I stopped doing pop-ups for a little while and being like, those were great though. That was a great way to get my stuff out there. So I think kind of not, it's almost like I felt like I was going backwards, and it's like, no, you're not going backwards. It's like you're just realizing like we can never just just rely on one thing, you know? And
Exactly.
a lot of us did. A lot of us were like, because it was great. It was working really well. Instagram was awesome, you know, but it could be awesome. It could stay awesome. But if I'm going on there and logging on and being like, well, no one's going to see this anyway, then like, how exciting, what kind of energy am I putting out? Like, would you even want to watch that if I'm like already frustrated when I like get on there? So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. But
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so important because it's like it's again coming back to mindset and like you can be really frustrated about all these things, or you can be like, what am I going to do about it and what is working? Because at the end of the day, like you're your own CEO, you're your own boss. You got to quit H&M. Like I always tell artists this, I'm like, okay, at the end of the day, like, are you having fun or do you need to go back to a job? And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's like, does
yeah,
art need to be your passion again? Or like, is it still fun for you? And I think that's a really important conversation because sometimes we get so caught up in like all the negative stuff with our art business that it's like, are you even happy? Like, if you're not happy, let's relook at this. Like, what are we going to do
oh,
differently?
I mean, good point. I mean, God, I didn't mean to be so negative. I feel like I've been like,
No, you're not negative.
I'm just like sharing the rawness of life right now,
Yeah.
you know? But I've definitely had moments where, you know, I've cried in my studio because I do think there is a perception of like, because I have grown, you know, there's people with way more followers, but when I got to a certain number of followers and I am selling, you know, which is great. There's other artists that I, you know, will cross paths with that will like think I have it all figured out, you know, and I'm
Hmm.
like, and they'll be like, they like want something from me, you know. There's not all of them, not the ones you bond with, but the ones are like, share, like, so what do you do with Instagram? How do you blah, blah.
Right.
And I'm like, girl, like that is not even like I cried in the studio last week. And they're like, what? I'm like, yes, I cried and was like, "Ugh, like, how am I gonna do this? But I was like, you have to I wish there was like a one way thing, but like we are saying, everything's always changing. And it's like, are you having fun? So I did put a note in the studio, but I think it's dropped off now. But it did say just keep creating. Because if we're sitting here and I'm just consumed by like marketing and how many likes and like how many people are on my page, like I'm wasting so much energy into that. I think it's good to know, but like when you know when you're just spiraling, you know,
Yeah.
to go, I need to create. And every time I do that, I like if I'm nervous because oh my kids were sick last week, I wasn't in the studio, and you know, now I'm learning to squirrel away so I can have some PTO. But it's like, oh man, you start to get nervous and in your head. And it's like every time I get like that though, if I just start painting and really just diving in, and I try to tell myself, like, you're not worried about anything. Like I always imagine like I have like, gosh, I used to say a million, but now the economy, I have to say I have 3 million in the bank. I have 3 million in the bank. What would I create today? Like
Yeah.
it's interesting to go, what would I make today if that
Yeah.
was in my bank account right now? And every time I do that, I sell. I always sell. And it might not be everything I made. It might be like the last thing I made in a session like that of like just diving in and being like, we're not going to obsess over this. Let's just create. That's what we love to do. Um, it's just funny how it works. Yeah, I always end up selling something from that.
I feel like that abundance mindset is so important. It's not obviously it's not easy to do, but I did the exact same kind of exercise. Like I was so burnout, probably like almost a year ago, maybe like 9 months ago. I was just like doing everything. And I was like, this is like too stressful. Like I just remember other people in my life were like, are you good? Like, or you're like, and
Yeah,
you put up the
I've
face
had
and
that
everyone
too.
on Instagram is like, Haley, it's so happy. I'm like, eye twitching.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
Me
I
dancing
talked
like,
to yeah, I'm like crying in the background, literally. But my business coach, I literally hired someone. I was like, I've got to figure this out. And she talked to me
"Hmm,
and she was like, and she said the same thing. First, she was like, what do you really love about your job and what's not working? And she was like, if you had, $1 million in the bank, like, what would you be doing? And she was like, you have to have that mindset of like, also, like, she was like, first off, you have to have the mindset of it's possible. So like what's really not working and is there a way to remove that? And then I also thought to myself, I was like, if this, let's say these certain things are really burning me out, can I remove them? And like, am I okay with losing that income? Like a lot of the times too, it's like, yeah, I'd rather be happier and maybe make a little bit less, knowing that these other things will start to get more of my energy and eventually it'll come back to where it needs to be. But it's like, also at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm not like, why am I chasing a number if ultimately I'm just not happy? Like, I could just go back and get like a corporate job
Mhm.
and get that number. So it's kind of like you have to like really
Yeah.
ask yourself those questions of like, why am I doing this if it's not fulfilling?
No,
And now I'm
no.
super happy and everything's great.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think looking at what's not working, what's draining you, and I think having a good balance of like sometimes in business there are things we don't like, right? But
Mhm.
recognizing what is like really eating at your soul, right? And
Yeah.
me retiring my prints, like that was scary because that is a significant income for me when I look at everything, but I don't like shipping. I don't like shipping, and I have hired help before, and I have someone helping me later today. But it no, no, I don't like it because you still have to help. You still have to be like, this is, did you sign it? Did you whatever? Because that's my personality. I'm not gonna have everything signed and ready for this person to help me ship. So it's like
Uh-huh.
it is draining. And then I would just be like, and if you collect from me, I'm working on my shipping, guys. That's part of it. I had people who were frustrated because they ordered and like, where's my, order? And I'm like packaging these $30 prints that I sold and like grateful for all income, but like, and then I'm pissing off a person who spent over 1,000 with me. You know what I mean? So I
Right.
like, okay, what are we doing? Like scaling down so that I could, like you said, like focus on what I really want to do. You
Yeah.
know,
Well, speaking on what you really want to do and going more positive, what have been your most successful moments up to this point in your career?
I know, like something more positive. I'm like, oh,
No, but
like,
this has been such a great
but I just feel
conversation.
like from reading threads and stuff, there's a lot of artists that I think, like, why come on here and pretend like, well, we got it all figured out. It's like, no, we don't, but we never will, right? We just having a
And I
community
love that.
created is so great. Like, that's something I realized
Thank you.
recently, by the way, and I'll get into what you just asked me, but I wanted to say this earlier was, um, because I was able to accomplish what I've accomplished, like, yeah, I'm pretty proud of myself for building my brand and being able to go full time and to get my work out there, from published to even on TV was cool, stuff like that's
Mhm.
fun. Um, but it's like, okay, what was I saying? Oh my God, sorry, I'm so ADD. I was
You're
just saying
fine.
about all that stuff is cool. Oh, coming across your page. So because I'm used to people looking to me and asking me like, what do you do? What's working? What's the secret sauce to like get 20K followers, I'm like, that doesn't even matter anymore. But when they're wanting that, it's just like you think, okay, I do have it figured out. And when I've been doing this full time now since 2019, I went full time. Um, I came across your page and I'm like, wait, I don't have it all figured out. Like what she's sharing right now is useful. Like I needed to hear that. I think I know that sounds I sound so cocky, God, but I was like, oh shit, no, this is useful. She's not just talking to the person who, in my mind, when I see like art coaches and stuff, I'm like thinking like you're talking to someone who is like doing watercolors and is doing like wedding portraits and wants to like make more money a month or something. I don't know. And like, but they work in a corporate job. I don't know. That's like the person I'm picturing. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
no, it's like the real deal. Like, this is useful. I don't have it all figured out. And I should, even if, you go to a different page or you hire a coach or you talk to another artist, you don't have to take everything they say, but choosing what you're going to take from that and what's going to, maybe work for you. So that was something I was glad about finding you. But you asked me about my accomplishments, right? Is that what you said?
Yes.
What was the question? You're like, what?
Well, first, thank you. Thank you for saying that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But the question was, what have been your most successful moments?
Hmm. Oh, that's funny. What would I find? That's so funny. It's like what feels successful to me. Um, damn. I mean, there's so many different things, right? Like what feels successful is like when you do sell out of a series, when you double your month or have the biggest month you ever had. But I think for me, it was also like um when people start to recognize your work. I think that's really cool. So I know
Mhm.
I'm not like saying one major thing, but it's like
That's
the moment
great.
like I feel successful is like when somebody sends me a screenshot from their Zoom call from work and they're like, I saw your artwork behind them, and I'm like, what? That's so
Yeah.
cool. or like, when I started to get orders from like Ireland and the UK, and I'm like, what? Um, Successful moments for me. I remember when I used to have my Etsy shop of like, I used to look at like who ordered and screenshot it to my friends and family. Be like, do you know them? Do you know them? And for me, when it started to become people no one knew, I was like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, cool. Like it's not, friends want to support you and things like that. And that's so great and so important. But then realizing like, okay, my art is reaching other people and they're connecting with it, makes me feel successful. Um, a cool moment was like Bravo TV when I had to sign the papers for my art to be like in the background. I'm a Bravo girl. Love
Yeah.
Bravo. If any of y'all are listening to this and you want to talk about Bravo, slide into my DMs. I will chat all day about that. Um, but that was like really cool because I didn't know what to expect one of the first times doing it. And it was like the main background in a scene. And I was like, I felt like I was on TV. I was like, it's like I'm on TV.
Yeah.
That was just really cool. And I was proud of myself because of how I went about it. I was brave, I think, because I reached out and put myself out there to those people and said, you like my stuff? Like, here's my artwork. And gosh, yeah, I was pretty ballsy then with sliding into DMs and just being like, you like my stuff? So that was really cool to see it manifest into the background of like my favorite show. I was like,
Wait, what was the show? You have to tell us.
oh, Southern Charm.
Oh,
Yeah,
Charleston girl.
yeah. So yeah, I used to live on Isle Palm, so I like to pretend I still live in Charleston, even though I don't. But because I do like art on the beach, I always find a reason to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool. It was because when I was first trying to build my following, I would paint celebrities or reality stars to get their attention. And I realized that would give me growth, right? And so I would do that. I would like go after them. And I painted one of the people on there, and then Chelsea um, started following me and liking my stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh. So then I saw she was renovating her home. And so then I deep dived to find her designer. And then I found her designer. And then I messaged her designer. And I was like, Chelsea follows my work. I think she likes it. Like, in exchange for pictures, like, I'll send you something if you want to look. They're like, yeah. And I was like, okay.
I
And
love it.
my husband's like framing it. This is like 19, I think, or yeah, like forever ago. But he's like framing it, and he's like, I'm framing artwork you're giving away for free. And I was like, I
To a
know.
celebrity, kind of.
I was like, I'm just trying. I'm just gonna see. And I didn't know if anything would come of it. But then it was in Charleston Magazine, and then, just to see it on the background was really cool. But yeah, I definitely was after those Bravo celebrities for a little bit. I think I was on Summer House, the artwork, and then on the OC, Megan Edmonds has like one of my mamas and stuff like that.
Awesome.
I definitely was like zeroing in on them at one point. So,
Well,
but
I mean,
that
it's a good strategy and clearly it fits your brand.
was
So I
yeah.
think
I haven't
that's
I haven't really done that now. I mean, Chelsea still buys, which is so I'm so grateful for her. She's very sweet. And and just so humble. If any of y'all watch Southern Charm, but um, her best friend Cameron, everyone
Mhm.
loved. So she had me do custom mamas, and she was like sending me the photos of her friends, and then she like sent me Cameron's photo, and I just thought it was hilarious. Like I don't know what she looks like. I'd be like, girl, I'm heavy breathing. Like, this is so cool. Like, and here's Cameron's photo. They're gonna, I'm like, yeah, I totally stalk her page. Like, what do you mean? I
Like
don't
I know
even
what
know.
Cameron looks like.
But I love it. She didn't assume that. Send it. I was like, yeah, let me pretend I'm cool.
Oh my gosh. Well, that is so amazing. And I also like I love your story and I love that you told like you just broke it down how you got there. And I think we all need like a little bit of that kind of naive bravery again. Like I feel like I was that way in the beginning of my business and now I
Yes.
I feel like I went through a period where I wasn't that way and then the other day I was like screw it. And I just started DMing people left and right and like lo and behold, I'm pretty sure I just DM'd you to be on this podcast. I was like, hey, like I've been following you for
Oh,
forever.
so
Like, want to come on?
excited.
And then, now we know each other and it's great.
Yeah, no, totally. And I sometimes I'll do that too. Like I'll share that story when people are like, how'd you build your following? I'm like, well, you want to know, break it down for you. Like I would paint celebrities all the time. Um, and it was fun to paint them. But yeah, I think it's just really remembering like how I had this feeling of like nothing to lose.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I think when you start to build your brand and your career, you just made me think of this. It's like you start to maybe get fearful of like perception and like looking desperate or looking, it's like, no, like, yeah, I think there's a difference in like valuing yourself. And like now I do not offer like for free, like
Right.
I'm like, okay, I've established my career enough. I feel like made a little bit of a little tiny little name for myself, a little tiny little drop name for myself that I don't have to offer something for free. I
Yeah.
think there's a difference in like valuing yourself and being like, okay, I've gotten this far. And then at the same time, when Instagram was acting weird and I wanted to push something, me reaching out to the bloggers that I used to reach out to and being like, hey, like, do you mind sharing this? And I
Right.
felt like, I can't believe I'm asking that. And they will, most of them will,
Yeah.
might get left on scene with some people, but most of the time, no. Like if they're people you really connected with in the past or really drawn to their stuff or their brand, like just asking. Nothing wrong with that. So
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I think that's such a great piece of advice. I'd love to kind of conclude with what do you see next? What's coming up? What's the rest of this year and 2025 look like for you?
yeah. I where the mode I'm in right now, because now, things are settled in, kids are back in a routine. We have holiday coming.
Hmm.
I think I'm gonna work on prepping for that so there's no burnout, right? Um, and my goal this year, like we were talking about our eggs not in one basket, is I think I would like to find a gallery to work with again.
Hmm.
Creating a body of work for that, which I don't, if you follow my page and stuff, is like I paint, post. Like it's rare that I'm like do a whole series or collection. And I think it would be a
Hmm.
fun challenge to create a collection and then apply to galleries. I think, you know, it, that's what I want to do now. I think because in the
Yeah.
past I was like, oh, they do take a percentage, but at the same time, it's like we were saying, why rely on one thing? Get yourself out there. Who are their collectors? And um, getting your stuff in front of their eyes. And just, I think there's something kind of nerve wracking about applying too. So I think that's a fun challenge for me. So that's what I'm gonna work on. And I'm gonna work on creating, like I said, I'm really focused on right now of like what's coming to me. When you paint, I believe it's like a very meditative state. And I like to meditate and connect with the divine and being like, what is coming through that I want to share right now? And taking time to do that is my goal. So
I
yeah.
love that. Oh my gosh. Well, such exciting stuff. Can you share how everyone can follow along, your social media, your website, all the different ways they can follow along with this journey?
Yeah, yeah. So Instagram is my name, Amanda Ryan Tucker. And if y'all didn't notice, my initials are Art. Art. I'm all like meant to be. My husband's stuck forever. And so my website, I do have some prints on Etsy. And then yeah, Instagram and my website are the same. And I'm on Perigold right now. But
Awesome.
yeah, I gotta. If anyone else is on Perigold, any other creatives, will you message me because I'm trying to figure out how to do the inventory restock. But anyway, we'll figure that out later. But I'm on there too. But yeah, I think that's it for where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was so fun. I could talk to you forever and ever.
And you can find me probably on random Bravo blogs commenting.
Oh, we love that.